Hey there, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, the podcast where we dig into ideas and insights that help you to unleash what you were born to bring. I get to chat with heart led experts and ask the questions that I know you're already thinking about, and then we explore conversations that spark growth, that shift perspectives, and that help you to show up fully in life and at work. So today we are exploring the power of niching down in the expert economy. And this conversation is worth your while because in today's expert economy, people don't hire generalists, they hire specialists. And if you want to grow your business, if you want to work less, if you want to earn more, then learning how to clearly own one lane and position yourself as the go to expert isn't optional, it's actually essential. So I'm your host, Linda Bucher, and honestly, I know I have the best job in the world because I guide impact driven humans like you to get unstuck and be the creator of a big, beautiful, rich, full life so that you can unleash what you were born to bring. And this is my mission. And so like I get to create this world where people live from their gifts, shine with purpose, and spark with the kind of change that lights up entire communities. If that seems interesting to you and you're like, oh, I want some of that, then hop on over to lindabucher.com. It's a great first step. You'll find some tools, some insights, some inspiration to help you step fully into your life and your gifts. Okay, so today let's dive into this conversation now, the power of niching down in an expert economy. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Frank King for the second time around. Frank is a mental health comedian. He made such a beautiful impact on my podcast last year. I'm going to say you were a guest, Frank. And I'm so glad you're back. Our topic is very different this time around. Today, we're talking about some, speakers, entrepreneurs making that difference and picking a lane. Our last conversation was a lot more serious, very, very important. It was about suicide prevention. Frank is a former writer of The Tonight Show. He is, did I already mention the mental health comedian? So he's a former writer for The Tonight Show. He's been on 13 TEDx talks. And Frank speaks not only on suicide prevention, but he's also a speaking coach for how to land at TEDx and how to make money as a speaker. So that's more of our focus for today. So Frank, thanks so much for being my guest. I appreciate it. And can you tell us a little bit more about, who you serve, how you are unleashing what you were born to bring into this world?
Well, and I believe I was born to bring comedy into the world. Occasionally somebody asks me that, Linda. Were you born funny? Yes, as a matter of fact. An amusing thing happened on the way down the birth canal. Uh, Fourth grade, 9 years old. I told a joke. The kids laughed. The teacher was so hysterical, she excused herself to go to the teacher's lounge. And I decided at that moment, at 9, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. So when people ask, hey, kids, what are you going to be? A fireman, a policeman, or firefighter, police person? What do I say? Stand-up comedian. Man, that would bring the conversation to a halt. They stare at me like fish in a pond because that's not the kind of thing kids say.
No,
12th
no.
grade,
Right,
I was
right.
going to be
And
that. Go ahead.
it's unusual for people to know at such a young age, but if you're getting that feedback that lights you up, then you're on the right track. You found a way to be aligned, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yes, and it kind of goes with our theme. It's the one thing I believe I was born to do.
Mm.
I took 3 years of drama in high school. I never got a speaking part in any of the school plays. I'm not that bright, but I did see a pattern. So, spring semester senior year, when they had the talent show, I thought, you know what? If I do stand up, I can write, direct, produce, and star in my own show.
I
So I
think.
did. Nobody had ever done stand up at that talent show, and I won.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
Fantastic. That's
Well,
great.
yeah, but I beat the accordion player in the folk dance. It's not a big victory, but still.
Still a
Anyway,
victory.
I
Yeah.
fast forward. My mom forced me to go to college. She said you can be a goat herder when you get done, but you're going to be a goat herder with a college degree. So fine, okay. Went to
Right.
UNC, couple of degrees, bolted for the West Coast. First open mic night, first 5 minutes. In San Diego, where we were living, is a branch of the world famous Comedy Store, just by chance. On stage, halfway through my 5 minutes, I heard a voice inside my head say simply, "You're home."
Mm.
Wow. So I decided at that moment I was going to do it for a living. Now, Linda, I've threatened to write a keynote called "What Could You Do If You Didn't Know No Better?" Because I had no idea how hard that was going to be. There were 30 of us open micers at the time, and only 3 of us ever launched and escaped gravity to make a living doing stand-up. So, I mean, about 10%. And we weren't the funniest, and we weren't the most talented. We were just the ones willing to get off our duffs and go. And so 18 months later, said to my girlfriend, now my wife of 38 years, I'm going on the road to do comedy. You want to come along for the ride? You know what I'm thinking. She's going to go, hell no. She goes, yeah. So we gave up the apartment and our jobs, and we were on the road together, no home for 2,629 nights in a row, nonstop. Yep. Beer bar to beer bar, comedy club to comedy club, drunk idiots screaming, tell us some jokes we can dance to. That's a quote. Yeah, it wasn't
That's
all
great.
glitz and glamour, but somebody said, did you enjoy it? How could you do 2,629 nights and not enjoy it or not be born to it? It's like a lot of things that are difficult. If you're born to it, it doesn't seem quite, it's work,
Right.
but it just feels natural.
Right.
So did a little radio in the mid 90s in my old hometown. And then the comedy club boom busted. And I had made a decision, niched actually in comedy back in the late 80s. I love well-written dirty comedy. So I thought I'll be a dirty comic. So I went to Vegas to improv. I did a little dirty set, and this old guy, he looked like an Oompa Loompa in a tuxedo, big guy, been there forever, probably knew Sinatra, I'm thinking. Anyway, he comes up to me and goes, hey, kid, don't do the dirty comedy. You don't have the face for it. He was absolutely right. Dirty comedy is not my thing. I'm a clean comic. And the dirty little secret about clean comedy is you can do it a lot more places. Cruise
That's
ships,
very true.
college, corporations.
Very true.
So
Yeah.
I in the late 80s, I became a clean comic. And that paid off because when the comedy clubs began to close, I jumped to the corporate comedy circuit, rubber chicken circuit.
Mm.
And people ask me, what's the difference between a club comic and a corporate comic? About $5,000 a night plus travel.
I
Yeah,
love that.
there's
That's
a
great.
niche.
That's,
Yeah, there's a
that's
niche.
great. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So,
So,
okay. So it's so obvious that you are bringing what you were born to bring, right? You've unleashed that, and you knew that at an early age. And then when you actually tested it out as an adult, and you got that feeling of I'm home, that's the feeling that we're all looking for. And when we're chasing something that doesn't feel like home, or we don't even know what feels like home, it's even easier to scatter our attention. So let's talk about this niching down. So when we're scattered, because I can be guilty of being scattered. So I'm what's called a scanner. Barbara Shear coined that term in a book she wrote called Refuse to Choose. Some of us are hardwired to have a wide, diverse set of interests and a super low tolerance for boredom. We're not ADHD. We just jump from thing to thing because we're like more like a honeybee. We go flower to flower. We don't have to get all the nectar off that flower, just what we came for, and then we want to go to the next one. So for people like me, it's especially hard to niche down. And so I have like this umbrella where I say I am a guide for impact driven humans, and I help them to unleash what they were born to bring. That's a very big umbrella. How I do it is about 200 ways. This podcast being one of them. Um, and and yet I have struggled myself to come up with one signature talk. I asked you, like, so do you have a bunch of different talks? What should we talk about, Frank? And you said, no, I just got one. I just got one. And that blew my mind. Right. So what happens when people don't niche down? Because I know you are a speaking coach, right?
yes.
So what do they come to you? What are the big issues? Like, oh, I can't this or this isn't working. Like, what do you hear from them?
Well, one of the first things we talk about when I get them as a coaching client, I go, okay, and this could apply outside of the speaking business. It could apply any business that you're thinking about or you want to be a part of. I say, okay, tell me one problem you want to solve. Just one. Speakers are problem solvers. The guy who puts my tires on and rotates them, problem solver. Auto body paint and body guy, problem solver. So I say, what one problem do you want to solve? And I force them to pick one. Usually it's what they're most passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book by Judy Carter called The Message of You, Turn Your Life into a Money-Making Speaking Career. She takes you by the hand and walks you to find your heart story, the one you cannot help but tell. So I say, okay, tell me what one problem you want to solve. Great. Now, uh, who has that problem and is willing to pay you to help solve it?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, what associations they belong to. Because if you're a speaker, you need to be speaking in front of a target rich audience. The
Mm-hmm.
benefit of having one topic, when I speak on suicide prevention at a construction association meeting, every corporation in that room has a ridiculously bad problem with suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal is to pick up a couple of spinoff engagements from the audience from that target rich audience. That's one of the benefits of picking a lane. So, A, what problem you want to solve? B, who has a problem, who's willing to pay it. Now, same thing applies if you have several interests outside of speaking, entrepreneurial interests.
Mm-hmm.
What are you most passionate about? What one problem? Just pick a problem. Now, when I tell my speakers, look, don't throw out all your other keynotes. Put them in a drop down under other programs because you
Mm-hmm.
can do them at breakouts or workshops or, well, we don't have that much money, for whatever. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do a keynote and you can pick one of these three breakouts. Now they've saved money on a breakout speaker so they can pay you what they would have paid them. So I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. Hang on to those because they can be useful. Is that
Okay. So, so you're jumping into our how and what, which is great because what you've really talked about is not only do you need to be clear on your one thing and be willing to pick your one thing, you also need to then not just niche your message, but niche who really wants your message instead of throwing it out to like everybody. What did you say yesterday? Spray and pray, right?
yes.
like see that stuck with me, right? And
Yeah,
so
just
as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, and what we're saying also works for entrepreneurs. You don't have to be a
yeah,
speaker for this, but you have to pick a lane. You're the thing you help with, the one thing. But then you also have to not market to absolutely everybody. And I know, like in my industry as a coach, the tools we have, and it is not untrue to say our tools can help anybody with
sure.
anything. It's they cross the board. They are universal tools for navigating life. Universal. However, it's hard when you know you can make a difference with so many to say, oh, but I just want to focus in on these people. And then, oh, but what about these people? But what about these people? But what about these people? Right. So um, but we not only do we need to hone our message, we need to hone who we're talking to. We need to hone who we're um, who we're trying to reach out to. And I
Yeah,
love how you said that the audience has to be target rich. That's a really good concept.
yes, because if I selected the top 10 at-risk occupations for suicide in the US.
Mhm.
So I know they have a problem. Construction last year, 1,000 people died in construction accidents. 5,100 died by suicide. You're 5 times more likely to jump off the building than fall off. So when they contact me, I don't have to convince them, hey, suicide prevention is a great idea. They know
Right,
that. They're just
right,
trying to figure out which suicide prevention speaker, and there are a
Mhm.
lot of them out there, clinicians and others.
Sure,
Um, and you have to differentiate yourself. Why hire me over somebody else?
right, yeah,
And that's where the mental health comedian came from, because it's a very difficult topic. And because when I started doing comedy, I always wanted to make a living and a difference, Linda. I always wanted to make a difference
Mhm.
beyond just 45 minutes of endorphins in a club.
Right,
I wanted to make a difference, and I could never figure out how. Then I read Judy's book, The Message of You, and I realized I do have something to talk about because there are more nuts in my family than in a squirrel turd. Because I'm a suicide loss survivor 2 times over, a suicide attempt survivor 1 time over, and I've got 2 mental illnesses. I thought, duh, I was born to speak on suicide prevention. And so and when I locked in on that, all of a sudden the universe is like, hey, welcome. We've been waiting on you. All of a sudden I'm invited by 2 women to help them co-write 4 books on men's mental health. I mean, everything seemed to begin to fall into place once I found how I wanted to serve,
right,
make
right.
a difference.
Mhm.
Um, and I mentioned yesterday there's a fellow in town who has an auto body shop. Uh, it's Todd has an auto body shop. He doesn't want everybody in town to come to his shop to get the car fixed. He decided his niche was environmentally friendly products, paint, lacquers, thinners. Everything in that shop is environmentally friendly. Now, it takes longer to dry. All the chemicals are more expensive. And the average person doesn't want to pay what Todd is charging. But see, we're in Eugene. I mean, this is, we can't cut down a tree without prying somebody off it from hugging it. Um, so he's in a market where people value the fact that all this stuff they'll pay extra. So he doesn't market to everybody. He
Right.
markets to the environmentally conscious person and I went in because I had wrecked my car and I got an estimate. I go, how long, Todd, before you can fix this? 6 weeks. He has a 6 week backlog. I mean, how many auto paint and body? And see, here's the thing, Linda. Auto paint and body places are struggling now because of all the super safety things they put on cars now. The thing that lets you know you're changing lanes, thing that lets you know you're getting too close. You know, there's so many fewer accidents. There are a lot of those guys out there starving. But Todd found a niche in a place where they value, so
Yeah.
that's the key is finding what it is, and he does a great job. He started when he was a teenager, but B, he found his niche. He's not just an average auto body shop.
Right.
So
What a beautiful example. I love this as an example. So we're not only talking to speakers, but even just in any industry, he found what he can do. And he said, how can I differentiate it based on where I'm located? Right.
yeah,
Like what do they care about around here? And what do I care about? Where does that intersect? And what might happen if that's all I market to? Right.
yep.
So that's
And
beautiful. What happens in your experience when people don't niche down?
well, you are dividing your energies, I think, spraying and praying. There's a friend of mine, and I love her dearly. Um, but she has speaker coach. She has him sending out, or theoretically sending out, reaching out to dozens and dozens of meeting planners a day. Well, I mean, if the speaker doesn't have something that that industry wants and needs, why reach out to all these people? Your commercials falling on the ears of people who don't need what you have to sell.
Right.
The people you need to talk to the people who need what you have.
Or will need it eventually in the future.
We talked about that. I sold
Yeah.
radio one summer, and I wrote ads, sold ads, voiced ads, and in radio they'll tell you there's a reason you hear tire store commercials in your car because you're in your car. And my boss said, look, Frank, only 3% of the people who hear the big old tire commercial today are going to need a tire today. But you know what? Every one of those cars has 4 tires. Someday soon, the other 97% are going to need tires.
Mhm.
And the trick here is to be known before you are needed.
Right.
So it's that repetition. You have to show up and show up and show up. That's why I believe you should niche your social media. I
Mm.
mean, I've got Facebook business, Facebook personal, YouTube, but LinkedIn, I just focus all my marketing energies on LinkedIn, business to business,
Mhm.
5 posts a week, 2 videos, 3 texts, 2 newsletters a month, all information. Just, hey, how do you make money speaking? No selling, just, hey, here's some more tips. Hey, here's some more tips. Hey, here's some more tips. And I've had people follow me, call me up and go, hey, I've been following you on LinkedIn for 2 years.
Mhm.
They finally decided they wanted to do something in the way of a speaking career, and they reached out to me.
Right.
So sometimes life is just about showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up. So I've got a friend who had a radio station, 2 or 3 radio stations actually. Here's another tip: find the vacuum in the market.
Mm.
When I made the decision to go clean comedy, I did so in part because clean comics are fewer and far between. Because dirty comedy is so much easier. Dirty
Get
jokes
it.
just
Yeah.
hurt me. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but clean jokes, I had to work to get them clean.
Right.
So I put myself into a much smaller pool of comedians, and only clean comics can work in the corporate market. And in Vegas last year, there were 26,000 conferences in Las Vegas alone. There have never been 26,000 comedy clubs in this country. So I saw the opportunity in the vacuum. Where's the vacuum? Where's the need that's not being, or it's not crowded. It's just
Right.
blue water as far as you can see. Well, my radio station friend, there were two country stations in town, new country, and he got a chance to buy a license. Those federal licenses don't come up very often for a radio station. And he thought he wanted to go country. But he said to himself, we already have two new country stations. They're beating each other up. You know what's missing? Classic country.
Mm,
George Jones, Tammy Wynette, Dolly.
right.
So he started a classic country, and boom, because that's where the vacuum was. Why
Right.
compete, with everybody else for scraps when you can find the vacuum and you've got it all to yourself?
Right. So let's talk about this expert, being an expert in this expert economy. People want an expert, they don't want a generalist.
Yep.
Um, and differentiation is obvious. You made a beautiful point and gave a lot of great examples about that. How does someone know if they're an expert? How do they hone that? Like, you know, how
Well,
and become known as it?
you say you are. I have that conversation with my speakers. They say, well, Frank, how can I say I'm an expert in this? I don't have a college degree in this. I don't have a graduate degree in this. Um, I say, but you have lived experience.
Hmm.
That's what they're paying you for. You have lived, whether they've suffered trauma or whether they, let's say they worked in the corporate world for X and they are amazingly good at HR. Yeah, you don't have a degree in human resources, but you've got 15 years, and you were the president of SHRM, your local society for human resource. And they go, but I can't. How do I say? Look, here's the deal. I did a suicide. I don't have any. I have a degree in political science and one in labor management relations. Nothing to do with suicide prevention. So a psychologist came up to me after a speech one time and said, "What qualifies you to speak on suicide prevention? You're not a psychologist, psychiatrist, a therapist." I said, "Well, I can tell you what the barrel of my gun tastes like." In the silence that followed, I said, "Look, I can go to college. I can learn everything you know, absolutely everything. You will never know all that I know. That's what qualifies me."
Mm,
So I call myself an expert suicide prevention speaker and comedian because of my lived experience.
hmm.
Uh, I don't think it's hyperbole. I don't think I'm exaggerating. I mean, I'm not expert in that. I've got an MBA in, social psychology, but my knowledge for a lot of people who suffer with mental illness or they care about someone who does is extremely valuable.
Right.
So call yourself an expert.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really more like give yourself permission
Yeah.
to know that you are an expert in your lived experiences. When I in addition to coaching, I'm also a mentor. I love to mentor people who are just moving from expertise into business, new coaches, especially. I love working with them. And they're all like, well, I just learned all these great tools that everybody else uses and everybody else knows. What makes me special? And I say, well, you can always take someone as far as you've come.
Hmm.
So, like, experientially. And though you know what it's like to be there, that's why you are a better hire for someone than another coach. Because coaches, we really don't compete because of our lived experiences, right? So I have met people who are like, well, I want to coach on people going through divorce because I'm going through a divorce, and I say, no, you're not on the other side. You can't coach while you're in the middle of it. You got to be all the way on the other side. You can say, I've made that journey, and then you take other people through that journey. And then you can be, like me, say, I've taken thousands of people through that journey, or like you, I've taken thousands of people or tens of thousands of people through that journey. I am an expert. I've been through the forest and I know how to go. I am your Sacagawea. I can get you there, you know?
Yes. An unwed mother, actually, Sacagawea was. Um, the So what industries have you worked in prior to this one?
So the industries themselves, I worked in the natural gas and pipeline industry, and I worked in an industry that was also utility related, like utility pole management. And my history was a computer programmer, a bunch of stuff with financial analysis, mergers, acquisitions, marketing department. and project management in IT. So very different than what I do as a
Yeah.
coach. Super different. However, I get business, I know business, which is why I'm qualified to help these new coaches or new entrepreneurs bridge that gap between expert and entrepreneur.
Well,
As
and you mentioned you have trouble deciding what to keynote on.
I have so much trouble
Yeah.
deciding what to keynote
Yeah.
on
Well, and
because that's not my most passionate thing. So,
no, but you have a head full of knowledge and as a coach, and
mhm,
and I believe that keynoting is a great business development tool for coaches because if you select your audience carefully, hopefully
mhm.
they'll love what you have to say and will come up to you afterwards and you may develop some coaching clients. In your case, I would say, Linda, look, you worked in oil and gas or natural gas
Natural
or
gas.
utilities. If I
Mhm,
were you, I would pitch any association to do with those industries that has the word woman in it.
mhm.
Women electricians, women in utilities, women in natural gas, um, and just in general, any association with the word woman in it, because you have an advantage, because you have the lived experience that I don't have in that way.
For
So
sure.
I think what people need to do is look at what they've done, look where their experience lies. I believe speaking is an intersection. It's what is it called? Venn diagram.
Mhm,
It's education, experience, passion, and where it falls in the middle, that's what you should be speaking on.
mhm,
Education, experience, and your passion.
mhm.
I believe is how you select that lane.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, So let's talk about all right. So first of all, I know we get to this point where when we're wrapping up a podcast episode, people are in their car, maybe they're walking their dog, maybe they're doing some dishes while they're listening, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, that was super great. I'm just gonna go to the next episode." But before you go to the next episode, before that happens, um, it's like when you buy a book. If you buy it and you look at the table of contents and you don't dive in, it becomes shelf help. That's it. It does you no good. You've got to get into action. So if you
Yep.
are an entrepreneur, if our listener is an entrepreneur, if they want to be a speaker or even a tire company, um, what is something very small in action that someone could take today, whether that moves them an inch, a foot, a mile, right? To be able to become seen and known as an expert so that they can make the difference that they're here to make in today's expert economy.
Well, here's something I do on planes when I'm talking to people. I have my seatmates, nice and we're chatting back and forth. And I've done 3 hour flights where I just ask leading questions. I never say what I do or, you know, at the end of the flight, they often say, well, what do you do? I'm a comedian. Well, you're not that funny. Well, I'm off the clock. Get your checkbook out. Um, but the question I often ask, almost always ask is, what do you do for a living? And they say, my favorite was the guy was a chief pilot for United Airlines sitting next to me. He was flying down to Dallas because 2 airlines merged. There were 2 chief pilots. Well, one of them's going to be out of a job. So I said to him, hey, man, let's say the worst happens and the other guy gets the job as chief pilot for United. If I could wave a magic wand, you could do anything you wanted and still support yourself. What would it be? And he said, sous chef.
Mm,
I, 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 because I did it in college. I loved it. I had a woman sitting next to me. She set up exhibit booths at exhibit halls for conferences. And then I say, do you enjoy it? And if they pause, Linda, if there's
mhm.
a pause after, then you know they don't enjoy it. It's a good living. And I said to her, what would you do if I could wave a magic wand? She told me, I can't even remember what it was. A year later, I got an email from her. Frank, you probably don't remember me. I sat next to you in first class when both got bumped up there, and you asked me, what would I do? I'm doing it. I think the problem, Linda, is a lot of people never ask themselves that question. If I could wave a magic wand and I could support myself in any way, what was the one thing that I would want to do? And when people tell me, they just light up. She
Yeah,
knew immediately. He knew immediately. The guy's a pilot. He wants to be a
right,
sous chef. I mean,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember feeling that way myself. I'm going to say maybe 41 years old, and my husband just died in his sleep with no warning. And, you're going through life. I had adopted three children. They were 3, 5, and 7 years old at the time that that happened. And I had never paused to ask myself, and, I mentioned all the things I'd been doing for a living in these companies. I never stopped to ask myself, who am I and what do I want? So now that I had a little bit of space because I was no longer a wife, although a sudden single mom filled a lot of space because there's a lot to do when you're a single
Yeah.
mother. But I had some space to think about myself because my marriage was not very easy. My husband was an alcoholic, and that came with a lot of management thing for me to do. I had a lot of management to do, which I really didn't have to do, but I thought I had to do at the time.
Sure.
And so, with this newfound space, I decided to embark on this journey of asking myself that question, like, if the sky's the limit, and I can support myself, what lights me up? And it was not being a project manager in an IT department. That wasn't it. Matter of fact, I found myself showing up later and later to work every day. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get here on time? That was the essential self, the essential part of me saying, no, don't make us do this anymore. It's wrong. It's not in alignment with who you are. But I'm like, but I don't know who I am. Well, you got to stop and figure that out. So I quit my high paying job and went to school to become a coach because I saw something that said become a coach, and it just I lit up like a Christmas tree. And I was like, what's a coach? I don't know, but I'm supposed to be it. Like when you said I'm home, that's how I felt about that. So like, so I'm like learning how to coach. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a living. All I know is this is true and right for me. And when you use the gifts and skills that you already have honed throughout your life, because you got them, and you apply them to what you're here to do, when you discover what that is, that's the pathway to making the difference that we're here to make. Because each one of us was put here for a reason. And the reason is to shine and be of service to others in some way, whether the others are your own immediate family, your church, your community, or if you're, Frank going on 13 TEDx talks and you're making people laugh 2,626 nights in a row. I mean, come on, right? Like, so we don't know how big the ripples are that we're here to make. We don't know where they'll reach, but we are here to make them. And so if the best way that we can move forward to move that inch, that, to move into that alignment, that's so important, is to niche down and say, what lights you up? What is super important to you? And what does the world need and they're willing to pay for? Right.
And let me give you three questions. I have a client I helped him get a TEDx talk. His TEDx talk topic was individuation. Individuation. It's kind of a midlife crisis in a fancy word. And he would ask, they always ask you at TEDx, what are your action items? What do you want the audience to do? And it can be
Mm-hmm.
simple as three questions. And so his three questions were, he goes, look, but I want you to ask yourself these three questions. One, are you living up to your expectations or someone else's?
Mm-hmm.
Two, are you the person you came here to be? And three, are you doing what you came here to do?
Right.
I think those are the essential, because people oftentimes get on the treadmill and just run and pay the bills and never ask themselves. He like you kept showing up late for work. He kept applying for this next level at his bank, this next level of management, and couldn't seem to get there. So he hired a coach. And the coach finally said to him, Anthony, you are overqualified for that level of management of the bank. You're not getting it because you're not qualified. You are not getting it because you don't belong there.
Right.
Which was, and he quit the bank, and he went back to school, and he got
Yep.
a degree in psychology or something, and he became a speaker. Now I got to tell you, it wasn't painless. His wife, who liked being married to a banker, divorced him because he was no longer a banker. His
Right.
mom, who was proud of her banker son, never spoke to him again except by text because he was, her son was a banker. Now he was not a banker. So it's not a benign process. You may leave a little, collateral damage in your wake. But I think it's important to ask those three questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a resource on my website called Success on Your Own Terms. And I wrote it because I had realized that I had been chasing someone else's definition of success for my entire adult life. And I never stopped to ask myself, Is that what I want? I'm chasing the promotions. I'm chasing the nicer car. I'm chasing the country club. I'm chasing whatever. And so it's like, I'm climbing this corporate ladder, and then I realize, but the ladder is leaning against the wrong building. I don't want to be on the top of that building. That's the wrong building. So then I broke down for myself, like, what are the the aspects that I want to consider when considering success? And I think there are aspects for everyone to consider, the components. One big one was freedom. What kind of freedom do I want to have? What would it look like? What makes me feel free? A second one was fulfillment. What lights me up? If I'm not doing something meaningful, why would I do it? Meaning means something to me, to my children, right? To my legacy, right? And the third thing is life balance. I was out of balance completely. And so what kind of life balance do I want to have? So when I ask myself those three questions, I'm getting way closer to the definition of success that matters to me. I will be successful when I have this type of freedom, this type of fulfillment, and this type of life balance. And then the question that happens is like, yeah, but what about the money, right? Well, the money now, you can look at the money only after you identify those, because you back into it. How much money will I need for that in order to live a life that has that freedom, that fulfillment, and that life balance? And the freedom for some people might be the freedom to travel the world. A freedom for other people might be the freedom to take a walk every day, right? So it depends on what you want. If you want to have, if what fulfills you is a beautiful in-ground pool, then you got it. The money for that is going to be part of your money equation. So there's no right or wrong answer, but there is something we want to make sure we don't have as a pitfall, and that's the measuring stick. How much money would you need to live the definition of success if it couldn't be used as a measuring stick by you or anybody else or anybody else, right? So we back into the money at the end. So I have a little workbook. It's right on my website, to be able to actually redefine success for who you are instead of chasing other people's definition. So I love that you brought that up, because then I get to talk about that. So that was really great. And the second question was what was it? Who are you?
Yeah, whose expectations living up to?
Right.
Who are you? Are you the person you came here to be, and are you doing what you came here to do?
Right. And the second and third question, really, I mean, yes or no questions. If you answer no or you hesitate, there's some work to be done, right?
Yes, and you need to find that intersection in the Venn diagram between experience, education, and passion. Whatever is there in the center. And I got to run because I've got a coaching client top of the hour.
All right. Awesome. Well, Frank, thank you so much for being here and for being my guest today. If someone wants to reach out to you because they want to niche down and become a speaker with TEDx Talks, what can they do?
I got the half an hour virtual cup of coffee. I think you got my calendar link, so just
Yep.
grab a spot. No charge. Don't bring your credit card. We'll just chat over coffee and see if I can help you.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. I will put the link to your calendar into the show notes. So thank you very much. All right. Well,
You're
that's our
welcome.
show. Again, I'm Linda Bucher, on a mission to inspire and impact millions of people to know their worth and share their gifts, deliberately creating big, beautiful ripples in the world. And if this episode sparks something in you, please be sure to like it, to subscribe to the podcast, and share it with someone that you care about. And then come back next week, because you will have another honest and uplifting conversation to help you grow. So until next time, please make sure that you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark that it ignited.